Is that supposed to be a costume or a cry for help? The words weren't shouted. They didn't need to be. Whispered just loud enough to travel, they drifted through the backstage hallway of Roosevelt Elementary's auditorium like poison through air. I froze at the sound of it, standing just beyond the thick velvet curtain. My son, Aiden, was crouched on the floor beside me, tightening a knot in the makeshift utility belt I'd sewn from leftover fabric scraps. He didn't hear the insult, but I did, and I recognized the voice. Janet Collings, PTA president, chair of the drama committee, mother of Oliver, the boy with the custom-ordered superhero suit that had its own light-up chest piece and detachable foam wings. I bit my lip hard enough to taste blood. Aiden stood up proudly.
Okay, Mom.
I'm ready. He was wearing the costume we'd made together over the past 3 weeks. Cardboard spray-painted silver, a cape sewn from one of my old blouses, and a paper mask he designed himself with colored pencils and glue. The colors weren't perfect. The lines weren't symmetrical, but it was real. Every inch of it carried his fingerprints, his ideas, his heart. You look amazing, I said. My voice cracked slightly, but I pushed past it. He beamed. I'm nervous, but good nervous. You think they'll like it? I smiled, though my stomach was in knots. They're going to love it. I wanted to believe that. The school was hosting its first ever Future Heroes play, a production that combined superhero themes with each child's personal dreams. The script was part improv, part storytelling, and every kid was asked to come dressed as their original hero. Not a store-bought character, but one they created from scratch. At least, that's what the flyer had said. But somehow, the rule had become optional for some of the right families. I'd seen the other costumes. Movie-grade replicas. Etsy commissions. Fabric shipped from overseas. It looked more like Comic-Con than a school play. Aiden's costume was different. It didn't shine. It didn't beep or blink. But it had something else, something I hoped the crowd would see if they looked close enough. Backstage, kids were buzzing with excitement. A girl fluffed her store-bought gown in front of a mirror. 2 boys compared their matching plastic shields. Aiden stood off to the side, clutching his handwritten cue cards. Then Oliver strutted in with his crew of cape-swinging clones. His mother walked behind him, smug as ever, carrying a branded duffel bag that probably cost more than my rent. She glanced at me, no greeting, and then scanned Aiden's costume. Her smile curled in that way people smile when they think pity is kindness. "Oh wow," she said slowly. "So brave of you both to go the handmade route." Her voice dripped with condescension. Aiden looked up at me, confused. I placed my hand on his shoulder and steered him away. The auditorium lights dimmed. The buzz shifted from chatter to quiet anticipation. The curtain was about to rise. "All students to your marks," called Mr. Nguyen, the drama teacher. Aiden took his spot in the lineup. His turn was third. I stood at the edge of the curtain, heart pounding. From the audience, I heard parents shifting in their seats, unwrapping candies, whispering. Janet sat front row, iPad poised, smiling like the queen of the event. The first act began. Lights hit the stage. The kids were adorable. Each came forward, shared their superhero name, their backstory, their powers. The crowd clapped politely. A few chuckles. A few bored glances. Then came Aiden's cue. He stepped into the spotlight, gripping the mic with both hands. For a second, he didn't speak. I held my breath. "My name is Captain Heartbeat," he said finally. His voice echoed into the room, soft but certain. "I can hear when someone is lonely, and I fix it."
A pause.
A few parents blinked. My suit isn't bulletproof, but it listens. My cape doesn't fly,
But it hugs people when they cry.
I don't have muscles. I have stories. Because stories are what heal people when they feel invisible. The auditorium was silent. I scanned the crowd. Phones lowered. Faces tilted.
A few eyes widened.
"I built this suit with my mom," Aiden continued. "We didn't have much. But she said the strongest power is making something out of nothing. So that's what we did." And then, the unexpected happened. A light flickered on from the side of the stage. It wasn't planned. I saw Mr. Nguyen fumble with the switchboard, but the timing was perfect. The spotlight illuminated the cardboard chest plate. The silver spray paint shimmered. And for the first time, that costume didn't look like scraps. It looked like armor. The audience leaned in. Then came the line that changed everything. "I'm not here to save the world," Aiden said. "I'm here to remind it that kindness still counts." A single clap echoed. Then another. And another. Suddenly, the room exploded in applause. I turned to see Janet lowering her iPad, blinking like she didn't understand what she had just witnessed. Beside her, Oliver fidgeted in his plastic suit. Aiden took a humble bow. But he didn't smile. He just looked out into the crowd, calm and steady. And I knew in that moment, something had shifted. The boy they dismissed with whispers was now the one holding their attention. But what none of them knew was what came next. Because what was about to happen wasn't in the script. And it would change everything. Before we continue, take a moment to let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to more powerful stories like this one. When the curtain began to close after Aiden's performance, something unexpected happened. It stopped halfway. Mr. Nguyen, visibly flustered, whispered frantically into his headset from the wings. The spotlight remained on Aiden, who hadn't moved. It was as if the stage itself refused to let him vanish. The silence lingered a beat too long. Then, from the back of the auditorium, a woman in a tailored blazer stood up. "I'm sorry," she called out, her voice sharp and clear. "Can I ask, did you say you made that costume yourself?" Every head turned. Parents craned their necks. Even Janet's smirk slipped. Aiden looked toward Mr. Nguyen uncertainly, but the drama teacher nodded, still frozen at the control booth. Aiden stepped back up to the mic. "Yes," he said. "Me and my mom. We didn't buy anything. We used what we had at home." The woman, whom I now recognized as Ms. Patel, the district's arts supervisor, stepped down the aisle, still speaking loud enough for all to hear. "I've been to 6 school performances this month. Most were polished.
Slick.
But yours, this was the first one that made me feel something." A murmur rippled through the audience. Aiden glanced at me. I gave him the smallest nod. He straightened. "Thank you," he said softly. Ms. Patel turned toward the principal, seated 2 rows behind Janet. "Mr. Aldridge, has the student been in any district arts programs before?" The principal cleared his throat. "Not formally, though I've seen some of his sketches from the school's art wall." "Sketches?" I thought. He never told me he submitted those. Ms. Patel nodded thoughtfully. Then she turned back to Aiden. "Would you be interested in applying for the Young Creators Initiative next term? It's a regional mentorship program. You get to work with professionals in stage design, costume, character writing." Aiden looked stunned.
Yes.
I'd love that." She smiled. "We'll be in touch." The applause reignited. Louder. Longer. It wasn't just polite now, it was electric. As Aiden stepped off the stage, I rushed to him, pulling him into a hug so tight I nearly crushed the cardboard. He whispered, "Did that really just happen?" I laughed, though tears blurred my vision. Every second of it. From behind me, a voice pierced the moment. "Excuse me." We turned. Janet. Her smile was sharp now.
Controlled.
"Hi there. I just wanted to say that was lovely. Really. Very touching." Aiden blinked. "Thanks." She added, almost too quickly, "Of course, Oliver's scene is still coming up. His is more action-heavy. Big finale." I felt the subtle jab. Aiden nodded respectfully. "That's great. I hope it goes well." She tilted her head, clearly disarmed by his grace.
Then she looked at me.
"You should be proud. Though next year, I'd be happy to connect you with some vendors. My costume designer has reasonable rates." I opened my mouth to respond, but Aiden beat me to it. "I think we're good," he said, smiling. "I like making things with my mom." Janet paused, lips tightening. "Of course. Well, best of luck with the program." She walked away without waiting for a reply. Mr. Nguyen appeared next, clapping softly. "I didn't plan that," he said to Aiden, laughing nervously. "But it was the most powerful part of the night. I thought the curtain was broken, Aiden admitted. Mr. Nguyen winked. Or maybe the story wasn't finished yet. Before we could respond, a line of students, some still in costume, started forming around Aiden. Dude, that was so cool. Where'd you get the idea for your hero? I liked your speech. You didn't even sound scared. He tried to answer them all, but his voice kept cracking under the surprise. One boy, from the fourth grade class, stepped forward shyly. He wore no costume, just jeans and a t-shirt. I didn't want to dress up 'cause I thought people would laugh. But I wish I had now. Aiden looked at him, then handed him his cape.
Here.
You can wear mine for the finale if you want. The boy's eyes widened. Really? Aiden nodded. A hero's cape is meant to be shared. I felt my throat tighten again. My son, who had been mocked, whispered about, overlooked, was now the one setting the tone for kindness. Behind the scenes, I saw the principal and Ms. Patel huddled in conversation. Then he stepped forward and tapped the mic. Before we continue, I want to take a moment to commend one of our students. Aiden Wells reminded us all tonight what true creativity looks like, not something bought or copied, but something imagined and made from the heart. More applause. And then something else. The lights dimmed again. The stage crew had reversed the order of the next scenes, placing Oliver's act last and letting the final act now belong to the boy who'd just inherited a cape. The change was symbolic, unmistakable. The whisper that had started the evening, the insult, the quiet jab, was now swallowed by cheers and camera flashes. But as the play continued, I started asking myself questions I hadn't considered until now. Who nominated Aiden's art to the school wall without telling him? Why did Ms. Patel happen to be here tonight? And most of all, how many times had Aiden been quietly brilliant while I was too busy worrying about how he looked? The answer, I suspected, was more than I knew. But I was going to find out. Because tonight, something powerful had started. And it wasn't just applause. It was a legacy. The play ended with thunderous applause, but it wasn't the final scene that stuck with people. It was what happened between the lines. In the parking lot afterward, as kids chattered and parents snapped photos, Aiden walked beside me quietly, still holding the belt from his costume in one hand. The cape he'd given away never came back. He didn't ask for it. That alone told me something had changed in him. You feeling okay? I asked, unlocking the car. He nodded, thoughtful. It all went really fast.
Yeah.
It usually does, I said. But what you did up there, that's going to stay with people. He buckled his seatbelt slowly. Do you think Ms. Patel was serious about that program? I turned in my seat. I think people like her don't waste their time saying things they don't mean. He looked out the window, smiling faintly. I don't even know what I'd do in a real program. Well, I said, starting the engine. That's the good part. You'll figure it out. What I didn't tell him was that Ms. Patel had pulled me aside before we left. She asked for my email and quietly said, "Your son doesn't just have talent, he has vision. That's rarer than people realize." And then she handed me a folded slip of paper. I didn't open it until we got home. Aiden was upstairs, still replaying the night out loud to himself while rummaging for snacks. I unfolded the paper at the kitchen table. It wasn't just an invitation to the Young Creators Initiative. It was a personal referral. From Ms. Patel directly. With a handwritten note at the bottom. Potential like this can't be taught. It can only be nurtured. If he joins us, I'll mentor him myself. My hand trembled slightly as I read it again. The weight of it hit me hard. I thought of all the nights Aiden spent sketching in the corners of his homework, building cardboard contraptions out of cereal boxes and narrating wild superhero adventures to himself in the living room. I used to worry he was escaping too much, that maybe all this imagination was a way of avoiding reality. I was wrong. He wasn't escaping. He was designing a way through it. I folded the letter again and tucked it inside the family binder where we kept our important papers. Birth certificates, school forms, doctor records.
Now this.
The next morning, I found him already awake, sitting at the kitchen table, hunched over his sketchbook with a serious expression. "Hey, early bird," I said. "What are you working on?" He didn't answer immediately. just kept drawing. I walked around to look. It was a costume. Another one. But this one was different. Not just taped together parts. It had labels. Notes about fabric weight. Ideas for how it should move. There was even a second page. Designs for gadgets that matched the character's theme. At the top of the page, he'd written, "The listener, V2." He finally looked up. I was thinking if I do get into the program, maybe I should start thinking more like a real designer. I swallowed. You already do. Then I noticed the envelope sitting beside his sketchbook. My name was scribbled on the front. "What's this?" I asked. He shrugged. "It's for you. You can open it later if you want." But I didn't wait. Inside was a single piece of lined paper, folded neatly. Aiden's handwriting was uneven in parts, but careful. "Dear Mom, I know you probably think I was brave last night, but I was only brave because you helped me be. If we didn't make the costume together, I wouldn't have done it. When people laughed or looked away, I remembered what you said. That what's real will always shine eventually. I believe that now. So, if I get into the program, it's not just for me. It's for us. Love, Aiden." I sat down and read it again. Then again. I wasn't ready for the quiet power of that letter. It wasn't just a thank you. It was a declaration of how he saw me, of how he saw himself. Later that afternoon, I scanned his room while putting away laundry. On the bulletin board above his bed were cut-out pictures from old magazines. Not superheroes or athletes. Artists. Costume designers. Set creators. Stage techs. Some were just in black and white. Others had notes scribbled around them. Cool collar shape. Color layering idea. This cape folds like origami. He had built an entire world here. One he never invited anyone into. Until now. As the week went on, something strange began to happen at school. Kids who used to ignore Aiden were now sitting beside him at lunch. A teacher asked him to help redesign the school's spring musical poster. One girl approached him with a shy smile and asked if he'd show her how to make a mask like his. The biggest surprise came when Oliver approached him in the hallway and said, "Hey, that cape was cool. Sorry if I kinda made fun of it." Aiden just nodded. "Thanks." He didn't gloat. He didn't hold a grudge. He simply moved forward. But not everything was moving quietly. A few days later, I received an unexpected call from Mr. Aldridge, the principal. "Ms. Wells," he said, "do you have a moment?" "Of course," I said, worried. "I wanted to tell you in advance," he continued. "Your son has been nominated for the district's Student Spotlight Award. Normally, it's reserved for academic excellence or sports, but this time, it's for creativity and courage." I was stunned. I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," he said. "Just know the board will be attending next month's district assembly. If he accepts, Aiden will give a short speech. And yes, costumes are encouraged." After I hung up, I stood alone in the kitchen, hands braced against the counter. This wasn't just recognition. It was a door opening. But even as that door opened wider, a part of me couldn't stop asking, why now? Why did it take a public spotlight for people to see what he's always had? And beneath that question, another, sharper, quieter. What happens if he doesn't win? If they raise him up just to watch him fall? I looked at his sketchbook again. The listener, V2. A character who hears the invisible hurt and heals it. I realized Aiden had already answered my fear. He wasn't creating to win. He was creating to be heard. And that I would make sure no one ever took from him again. The Roosevelt District Assembly was held once a year, usually in the stale multipurpose room of the middle school campus. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, a sound system that buzzed like a wasp in a soda can. It wasn't glamorous, but it was important. This was the stage where teachers were recognized, budgets announced, students awarded. Parents came mostly to applaud their kids, sip bad coffee, and check their watches. No one expected fireworks. But this year, they were about to get them. Especially when they saw Aiden walk in. He wore a new costume, not store-bought, not flashy, but designed with the same care he gave everything. It was sleeker than his first. layers of deep navy and gray fabric he'd repurposed from old curtains and one of my blazers. The chest emblem was hand-stitched, a heartbeat inside a speech bubble. I'd never seen him walk so confidently. Chin up, shoulders back. He wasn't playing dress-up anymore. He was stepping into something bigger. The school board sat stiffly behind folding tables at the front. Ms. Patel was among them, flanked by superintendents and counselors. When she saw Aiden, she smiled, not politely, but like she knew something no one else did. I sat near the back, twisting a napkin in my hands. When his name was called, our final student spotlight nominee, Aiden Wells, for outstanding creative resilience, I felt my heart pound. He stepped onto the stage. No microphone feedback. No shuffling script papers. Just silence. Then Aiden cleared his throat and spoke. I don't have trophies. Or straight A's, he said. I'm not the fastest runner. I've never been on a team. A few murmurs rippled through the audience. But I make things. I build stories out of stuff most people throw away. I hear ideas in silence. I see possibilities in scraps. He held up a sketchbook, the same one from our kitchen table. This is where I started. In the corner of my room. With cardboard, glue, and too many mistakes. A soft chuckle rose. But I learned that sometimes, people only hear you when you speak loud. And sometimes, the loudest thing you can do is show up anyway. Now the room was quiet. I almost didn't wear my costume to the school play. I thought people would laugh.
He paused.
Looked directly at Janet, who sat 3 rows back with her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. They did laugh, he said simply. But they didn't understand it yet. There it was, that phrase again. They didn't understand it yet. He said it not with anger, but with certainty. Like time had proven him right. And now they do, he added. Not because I shouted, but because I shared something true. The room burst into applause. A few people stood. Janet clapped too, stiffly. She could not. But the attention had already moved on. Ms. Patel leaned into her mic. Thank you, Aiden. Your words reminded us that creativity isn't about polish. It's about presence. You showed us what resilience looks like when it wears a cape made at home. More applause. Louder this time. But just as Aiden stepped down, something else happened. The superintendent stood up.
Tall.
Stern. Not the kind to get involved in student presentations. I'd like to add something, he said, adjusting his glasses. We've been reviewing a proposal to cut after-school arts funding. It's on the docket next month. A low murmur spread. But after today, I think that conversation needs to change. Silence. Because if a 12-year-old can make us all pause and rethink our values, then maybe we've been measuring the wrong things. He turned to Aiden. Your story mattered today, not just for the board, but for the future of how we support students like you.
Gasps.
Whispers.
People leaning in.
I covered my mouth with my hand. He wasn't just making art anymore. He was shifting policy. After the assembly, people swarmed us in the hallway. A teacher from a neighboring school asked if Aiden could visit her class. A board member offered him a private tour of the city's youth art center. Another parent, someone I'd never seen at any school event, said quietly, I needed that today more than you know. And then there was Oliver. He shuffled up slowly. No entourage this time. His backpack slung over one shoulder, hands jammed in his hoodie pockets. Hey, he mumbled. Your costume, that was cool. You really wrote all that yourself. Aiden nodded.
Yeah.
Oliver looked down. I just read what my mom gave me to say. A pause. Aiden didn't respond. He just smiled, small but kind. Next time, try writing your own. It feels better. Oliver blinked, then nodded once and walked off. That night, Aiden and I sat on the couch with popcorn between us, rewatching a recording someone had posted online of the assembly speech. It had already been shared over 2,000 times. You know this is just the beginning, right? I asked. He grinned.
Yeah.
I think I'm ready. But I still had questions. Why did Ms. Patel really mentor him personally? Why was the superintendent already reconsidering policy after just one speech? And most importantly, what else had Aiden been creating behind closed doors? Projects I never saw, ideas I hadn't noticed. That's when he leaned over, grabbing a folder from his backpack. "I've been meaning to show you something," he said. Inside were sketches.
Dozens of them.
Not just costumes, but a comic book. Pages inked with storyboards, character arcs, panel layouts. It wasn't finished, but it was far more advanced than I ever knew he could create. He tapped the corner of one panel.
"This one's you," he said.
"The person who never gave up on me." I stared at the drawing. A figure standing tall, holding a needle and thread, surrounded by broken pieces being stitched into something whole.
"She doesn't have powers," he said.
"But she makes other people believe in theirs." That's when I realized he wasn't just writing stories. He was writing ours. And this moment right here was the beginning of his origin story. The week after the district assembly was quiet, but not in a bad way. It was the kind of quiet you get after an emotional storm, when things have finally shifted and everyone's waiting to see where the dust settles. At school, Aiden walked the halls differently. No longer invisible, but not seeking attention either. His presence just was. Like a lighthouse. Not loud, not demanding, but impossible to miss. Teachers smiled at him now. Kids waved. Even the front desk secretary greeted him by name. And still, Aiden stayed Aiden, head down, notebook in hand, sketches growing more detailed by the day. On Thursday, something strange happened. He came home from school, tossed his backpack onto the couch, and said, "There was an envelope in my locker." I looked up from the kitchen sink. A letter? No name. No return address. Just this. He pulled out a thick manila envelope, sealed with tape. On the front was his name in blocky, unfamiliar handwriting. He handed it to me. "You haven't opened it?" I asked. He shook his head. "I wanted to do it with you." We sat down together at the table, hearts thudding. I carefully peeled the tape and slid out the contents. Inside was a folder. And inside that folder were designs.
Dozens of them.
Blueprints. Fabric swatches. Professional-grade costume renderings. Some were marked with production notes and timestamps. All of them were signed with a single name. W. Mercer. I blinked. That name was familiar. Aiden leaned in. "Wait, isn't that?" "Yes," I said, stunned. "Wesley Mercer. The man who designed the costumes for Fireborn Chronicles. That show you loved." Aiden's eyes widened. "No way." I flipped through the folder again. At the back was a handwritten note, scribbled in dark pen. "Aiden, I saw a clip of your speech. Someone forwarded it to me with a single sentence. This kid reminds me of you at that age." They were right. I was the kid who used duct tape and cardboard too, who wasn't polished enough. But I didn't care because I knew I had something real. And so do you? I don't normally do this. But you reminded me why I started. Enclosed are my earliest design drafts from when I was still learning. They're yours now. Study them. Tear them apart. Improve them. You don't need permission to create. You just need courage. Keep designing. I'll be watching. W. Mercer. Aiden's hands shook as he held the folder. "Is this real?" I turned the note over. There was a phone number. An email. "Yes," I whispered. "It's real." For a few seconds, we just sat there in silence, staring at the folder like it might vanish if we blinked too fast. Aiden spoke first. "I don't get it, why me?" That question lingered in the air, and I saw something shift in his face. A flicker of fear. Like this opportunity was too big. Like he didn't deserve it. So I reached out and touched his hand. "Because you showed up," I said. "Because you told the truth when others were too scared to. That's why." He looked at me, uncertain. "But what if I mess up?" "You will mess up," I said gently. "That's part of it. But you'll keep creating. Because you're not doing it for applause. You're doing it for the story." That night, Aiden didn't sleep. He was up sketching, redrawing one of Mercer's designs with his own spin. He added notes, new materials, a modular cape attachment system made out of recycled elastic, a reflective trim idea using foil candy wrappers. Around 2 a.m., He tapped on my door. Mom, he whispered, can I ask you something crazy? I sat up groggily. What's up? He grinned. What if we designed a full showcase? Like a mini fashion line. All original hero costumes. 5 looks. One for each type of strength. I blinked at him. You mean like a real collection? Yeah, he said. I already have the theme. It's called Everyday Heroes. For the people who don't wear capes. Like nurses, custodians, grocery workers.
You.
My heart clenched. He went on, energized. What if we showed people that you don't need superpowers to be heroic? What if that was the message? And just like that, the idea was born. We cleared out the garage the next morning, set up a sewing station. Aiden used old bedsheets to mock up silhouettes. We posted in a neighborhood forum asking for fabric donations, and within hours, bags of material appeared on our porch. Teachers offered to help. One parent lent us their dress form mannequin. Ms. Patel stopped by with a book on costume history and said, when it's ready, I'll help you get an audience. Aiden worked like he was possessed. Focused.
Joyful.
I watched him one evening as he adjusted a sleeve hem, muttering to himself about movement and breathability. He wasn't just sewing. He was building a statement. One night, I asked him, why 5 designs? He replied, because I want every kid to see themselves in one. Not just the fast or strong ones, but the quiet ones, the careful ones, the ones who always hold the door. I nearly cried, but even in that joy, I couldn't shake a question. Who sent the video to Wesley Mercer? It wasn't online long. The clip was posted, shared a few times, and then quietly removed from public view, probably due to school privacy rules. Someone had sent it directly to Mercer.
But why?
And how did they know exactly who would care? I started making a list in my head. Ms. Patel? Mr. Nguyen? A teacher? Someone else entirely? Whoever it was, they'd given Aiden more than a contact. They'd given him momentum. And momentum changes everything. It started with 5 outfits on a clothesline. By the end of the month, it was a standing room-only event in the Roosevelt Elementary multipurpose room, transformed into a makeshift runway, thanks to a few borrowed string lights, folding chairs, and Aiden's unstoppable vision. He called it Everyday Heroes, a living tribute. Each costume represented a different type of hero. The listener, deep blue with soundwave accents and oversized sleeves to represent open arms. The healer, soft green fabric with patchwork embroidery symbolizing mended pain. The protector, a sturdy, layered design with a utility belt made from upcycled seatbelts. The encourager, bright orange with uplifting quotes hidden in the inner seams. The builder, grayscale with chalkmark outlines, unfinished, evolving, full of potential. Each one had a story, and each one was worn by someone Aiden had personally invited. Not actors, not models, but real people. Ms. Flores, the school janitor who stayed late every night without thanks. Malik's mom, who worked 2 nursing shifts and still coached the girls' soccer team. The crossing guard who danced at his post rain or shine. My friend Carla, a single mom of 3 who taught free art classes on Saturdays. And finally me. I didn't know I'd be part of it until the night before. Aiden handed me a garment bag and said, "You're walking." I laughed.
Me?
Why? He looked at me, serious. Because you're the reason I even started this. He didn't explain further. He didn't need to. The next night, the room was packed. Local news showed up. Parents whispered in the back row. Ms. Patel stood near the entrance, clipboard in hand. And right in the middle sat Wesley Mercer himself. He had flown in. I only knew because I recognized him from the designers panel at Comic City last year, a man with salt and pepper hair, round glasses, and the quiet confidence of someone who's built entire worlds from thread and ink. He hadn't announced his visit. He'd just shown up. And now he sat quietly in the 3rd row, no entourage, no spotlight. Just observing. The lights dimmed. Aiden walked on stage, not in costume, but in a plain black shirt and jeans.
He stepped up to the mic.
Tonight isn't about capes or powers, he began. It's about presence. about the people we see every day who make the world safer, kinder, stronger, just by showing up. He motioned to the side. Music began. Simple piano chords. And then, one by one, the models took the stage. There was no runway, just a long, cleared aisle. But when Miss Flores walked out in the builder outfit, head held high, the room erupted. Not because of the clothes, but because of her. People clapped.
Cheered. Some cried.
One after another, the unsung heroes walked that aisle like it belonged to them. And then it was my turn. I stood at the edge of the stage, heart pounding, wearing the listener. It fit perfectly, not just in size, but in soul. The moment I stepped out, I saw Aiden in the front, smiling, not beaming, not proud in the flashy way, but full of quiet, steady joy. He nodded once. That was all I needed. Afterward, people swarmed him. Local news asked for interviews. Teachers from other schools wanted to borrow the concept. One parent asked where she could buy the costumes. Aiden shook his head. "They're not for sale," he said. "They're stories, meant to be shared, not sold." Later, Mercer approached him directly. No cameras, just the two of them near the folding chairs. "I brought something," he said, reaching into his coat pocket. He handed Aiden a small, square envelope. Inside was an embossed card. An invitation. Youth designer in residence. Summer mentorship at Mercer Studios, LA. Personal letter of recommendation for scholarship consideration. Aiden looked up, stunned. "Is this for me?" Mercer smiled.
Yes.
"And for whoever believed in you enough to send me your speech." Aiden blinked. "You still don't know who sent it?" Mercer shook his head. "It came anonymously. No return. Just the file. But I don't need to know. I saw what mattered.
But I needed to know.
And it had gnawed at me for weeks. So after everyone cleared out, I stayed behind. Cleaned up cups. Folded chairs. Just waited. And then, as the janitor flicked off the lights, Mr. Nguyen walked in. I turned, startled. "Oh, didn't mean to scare you," he said, holding up his hands. "Just came to grab the tablet I left backstage." I nodded. "No problem." He hesitated, looked at the empty stage. "That boy of yours," he said, "reminds me of myself at that age." I smiled. "That's what Mercer said, too." He chuckled. "Well, great minds think alike." He turned to go, then paused. "You know," he said without looking back, "sometimes teachers send things they know the world should see. No signature, no credit, just a nudge in the right direction." And then he left. I stood there, breath caught in my chest. It had been him, Mr. Nguyen, the quiet drama teacher who let Aiden rewrite his lines, who rigged the curtain to stop that night, who never once told us how much he believed until now. He didn't need applause. He just wanted Aiden to be seen. I walked out into the cool night, blinking back tears. Aiden was waiting for me near the car, folder in hand. "What took you so long?" he asked. "Just tying up loose ends," I said. He grinned. "Next project."
Oh, definitely.
"But after we sleep for a week." He laughed, and the sound echoed across the lot. But in the back of my mind, I knew we weren't done, because momentum doesn't rest. And Aiden had just begun to fly. 2 weeks after the showcase, everything seemed to slow down. The studio invitation from Mercer sat on Aiden's desk like a golden ticket. He hadn't replied yet, not because he didn't want to go, but because something was holding him back. "I don't want people to think I'm only good because he noticed me," he said one night, tracing the edge of the card with his thumb. "I want my work to speak first." I wanted to argue, tell him he'd already proven that. But I recognized the look in his eyes. It wasn't doubt. It was deliberation. He wasn't chasing recognition. He was stewing, like an inventor mid-blueprint. And that always meant something was coming. I didn't realize how big until the fire alarm went off at Roosevelt Elementary. It happened during the school's open house night. Tables set up with kids' projects, parents roaming the halls. I was there helping supervise, chatting with a few other moms near the art table when the blaring noise hit us. For a moment, we all froze. Then, the teachers herded everyone out calmly, assuming it was a false alarm. But it wasn't. Outside, in the fading spring light, smoke began to curl from the east side of the building, the tech wing. Panic flared. A few parents ran toward the parking lot. Others shouted kids' names. I grabbed my phone, heart in my throat, scanning the crowd for Aiden. He wasn't there. I ran toward the far corner where few students were huddled near the supply exit, teachers trying to do a head count. Mr. Nguyen's face was pale. He was just inside, he said breathlessly. Backstage. He was helping set up his mini display again for the families who missed the show. I told him I'd be right back. I didn't wait for permission. I ran. Smoke filled the hallway as I pushed through the side door. I held my sleeve over my nose, sprinting toward the small auditorium. It wasn't on fire, but the air was thick. Aiden, I shouted. Aiden, answer me. A beat of silence. Then, from behind the curtain, a voice. Back here. I'm fine. I reached the stage and found him crouched beside a rolling cart, frantically stacking sketchbooks and fabric samples into a bin. We need to go, I said. He nodded, standing quickly, but then paused. Wait, my journal. It's on the control table. He darted off before I could stop him. Seconds later, he reappeared, coughing but clutching the worn black sketchbook to his chest. We ran back out together into the night. Paramedics checked him for smoke inhalation. He was fine, thank God. A few firefighters nodded to him respectfully after they learned he'd stayed behind to save the student work displays that other kids had contributed to the showcase wall. But the real surprise came the next morning. The local news ran the headline. 12-year-old designer risks smoke to save class creations. Underneath was a still image. Aiden stood on his cheek, sketchbook in hand, eyes fierce. That photo spread like wildfire. By noon, he had over 3,000 new followers on the school art page. By dinner, his inbox was flooded. Costume designers, journalists, even someone from a major youth empowerment organization who wanted to feature him in a documentary about quiet leaders. But he didn't read the comments. Instead, he sat at the table and quietly opened his sketchbook. What are you thinking? I asked. He looked up. I think I'm ready to say yes. To Mercer? To all of it. He paused. But only if I get to leave something behind first. I frowned. What do you mean? I mean, I don't want to leave without making sure the next kid like me has somewhere to start. He tapped his pencil thoughtfully against a paper. I want to create a starter kit. A real one. With patterns, ideas, how-tos, even ways to get fabric if you can't afford it. And I want it in the school library. Permanently. I stared at him. You want to create a design archive? For Roosevelt. Exactly, he said. And I want it to be for everyone. Even kids who've never thought they were creative. I couldn't speak. Pride choked every word I tried to say. He'd gone from needing the spotlight to building one for others. Over the next 2 weeks, Aiden worked harder than ever. He scanned all his early sketches, wrote step-by-step notes, photographed his process using a borrowed school tablet. Ms. Patel helped him format it into a digital booklet. They printed 20 full-color copies, then laminated them. He called it the Spark Book, How to Start Designing When You Don't Know Where to Begin. The morning he donated them to the school library, the principal asked if he would say a few words during the final assembly. He walked on stage, again in jeans and a plain shirt. I'm not here because I'm the best artist, he said. I'm here because someone saw me before I saw myself. He held up the Spark Book. This is for the ones who think they don't have talent, or that they need money to matter. You don't. Then he stepped back. The entire auditorium rose. A standing ovation. Not because he was going viral, not because he'd been offered mentorships, but because they finally saw what he was really building. A legacy of belief. And as the clapping continued, Aiden did something unexpected. He looked into the crowd, found Mr. Nguyen, and held up the Spark Book toward him, and mouthed, "This started with you." Mr. Nguyen's eyes glistened. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just bowed his head once. A silent thank you returned. Summer came faster than we expected. 1 week after the standing ovation, a package arrived. Thick, crisp paper. A gold embossed logo. Mercer Studios. Inside was Aiden's final travel itinerary. Flight details. Studio access badge. An official welcome letter signed by Wesley Mercer himself. There was also a handwritten sticky note attached. Bring the Sparkbook with you. The interns here need it more than they know. Aiden folded the note carefully and tucked it into his sketchbook. For the next few days, he was quieter than usual, not nervous, just still. Like he was bracing for something big, processing the weight of everything he'd built. We packed his clothes, folded the original costume gently into a garment bag. I offered to come with him to LA. He said, I think I want to do this first part alone, but save a seat for the final show. The morning of the flight, I stood with him in the security line. He looked older somehow, not just taller, but anchored, grounded. He turned to me and said, You know what I realized? What? I thought I needed a stage to be seen, but it turns out I just needed a reason to stay standing. I blinked back tears. You gave that reason to a lot of other people too. He grinned. Good. Then I did it right. He hugged me, held on for a second longer than usual, then disappeared behind the checkpoint. And just like that, he was airborne. 2 months later, the Mercer Studios summer showcase wasn't publicized. It was invite only. 100 seats. No social media. No live feed. Just a quiet evening for creators to present what they'd built during their mentorship. The moment I walked into the space, I knew something had changed. His work wasn't tucked away in the corners anymore. It led the room. 5 mannequins stood in a line, each wearing a refined version of the Everyday Heroes collection, sleeker, sharper, with touches of professional polish. But they were still unmistakably Aiden. The listener now had sound-reactive embroidery that shimmered when music played. The healer had hand-stitched red thread lines that glowed under soft light. The builder had tools embedded into the belt design, real ones for real use. Aiden stood beside them, taller now, dressed in all black, his hands folded calmly behind his back. When he saw me, his eyes lit up, but he didn't rush over. He waited until I came to him. I saved the last seat for you, he said, leading me to the front row. The lights dimmed. The music began. And then, something I didn't expect happened. A 6th figure walked the runway. Not a model. Him. Aiden himself stepped onto the stage wearing the final costume. A new one. One I had never seen. It was silver and midnight blue. A long-line jacket with asymmetrical panels. On the back, in subtle stitching, was a symbol. A needle and thread crossing over a pair of open hands. The emblem of a maker. As he walked, the music shifted. He stopped at center stage and spoke, not into a mic, but to the room. This one is called a catalyst, he said. It's not about powers. It's about what you leave behind. He turned, and it's dedicated to the first person who ever told me cardboard could be armor. His eyes found mine. Mom, this one's for you. I broke.
I didn't clap.
I couldn't. My hands were too busy covering my mouth as tears streamed down my face. The entire room rose. Wesley Mercer stood and bowed his head in the same way Mr. Nguyen once did. And in that moment, I saw the full circle. From a crumpled foil-wrapped costume in a school auditorium to an original collection unveiled beside professionals. From whispered insults to standing ovations. From cardboard scraps to crafted legacy. 1 year later, the Sparkbook became a national program. 5 states picked it up. Schools requested hundreds of copies. And Aiden, well, Aiden became more than a designer. He became a spark himself. He speaks at schools, leads free virtual workshops, wears his first costume, the rough one, with the crooked seams, on the cover of the first youth design zine ever published under Mercer's foundation. We still cook dinner together. He still asks for my opinion on his sketches. But I don't guide anymore. Now I just witness. Because the boy who once clutched his homemade belt in a hallway full of expensive costumes is now the one handing out capes. If you watched this far, thank you. If you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or told your work wasn't enough, this story is for you. Because sometimes, all it takes is one brave kid, one pair of working hands, and one homemade cape to remind the world. Real heroes don't wait for permission. They create it